Ray was an ugly mage who got treated like trash for being the only commoner in magic school for nobles. However, everything changes when he reveals he's the strongest sorcerer in the world, so he starts rizzing up rich baddies and cracking everyone. It all begins on Ray's first day in the Arnold Academy of Sorcery. Since it's also the entrance ceremony, he tries to find the venue, but then a chick named Wanda bumps into him, so he helps her up and apologizes, saying it's his first day here. Surprised, Wanda's girls recall that the only student said to be resuming today is an ordinary, a term they use for peasants. As Wanda gets repulsed by Ray's touch, another student named Albert shows up to meet him, but when Ray offers a handshake, Albert smacks his hand away and says that the academy is only meant for the descendants of nobles and sorcerers, not some backwater scum who probably scammed his way into getting an admission. Ray remains calm, saying he wants to learn a lot from the academy, and this infuriates Albert, so he throws a punch, but Ray casually evades it. Before Albert can attack again, a stunning beauty named Amelia tells him to stop, and he reluctantly obeys because she is from one of the top 3 noble families. After Albert storms out, Amelia introduces herself to Ray and commends him for being the first ordinary to be accepted into the academy. Much later, a teacher named Gray introduces Ray to his classmates, and as he walks to his seat, Amelia expresses how eager she is to work with him, which surprises everyone. Moments later, Gray explains that being in this academy means that they are all aiming to become one of the 7 greatest sorcerers on the planet, but then Albert gets up and says that Ray doesn't even deserve that chance because he is a peasant. Pissed off, Gray tells him that Ray passed the academy exams, which makes him just as qualified as any one of them. As the lecture continues, Gray teaches them the basics of sorcery, and after Amelia asks a couple of questions about the elements, another very shy student named Elisa asks Gray if she used anti-material code to get rid of the elements she created. While Gray explains that no sorcerer uses anti-material code, and students have no business with that level of research, Ray gets intrigued by Elisa. After classes, he sees her entering the library and meets her at the shelves before spotting her book and asking if it's about the question she asked. After introductions, they sit at a table, and Elisa explains how fascinated she is by the author. Ray also shares the feeling, and this makes Elisa so excited that she accidentally drops her hood. Ray then asks why she hides such beautiful hair, but Elisa asks if that is all he noticed about her. When she points out her elf ears, Ray still insists that she is beautiful, so she thanks him and explains how people have always made fun of her for being half-elf. After spending the rest of the day with her, Ray finally heads to his dorm room and is surprised to find his roommate waiting with a mean look on his face. However, after introducing himself, Evie says he doesn't care about Ray being an ordinary and walks over to him before they shake hands and notice their insane grip strengths. The next moment, they rip their shirts off, flex their washboard abs, and take turns glazing each other. The next morning, Ray heads out for a quick run and almost rams into a hottie, so he stops to apologize. After commending him for working out so early, she introduces herself as Rebecca, a third-year student, and says that everyone already knows who he is, so he doesn't have to introduce himself. Later that morning, while walking to class, Evie tells Ray that Rebecca is also from the top 3 noble families, like Amelia, whose family happens to be at the top of the food chain. After Evie explains just how important Amelia is, Ray recalls that he got summoned by the principal, so Evie tells him not to be late for the combat lesson. Moments later, a fun-sized chick named Clarice runs into Ray and immediately starts blaming him, but he once again remains calm and compliments her pigtails. This makes her all warm and fuzzy inside, so she decides to become his friend, despite knowing that he is an ordinary. After she runs off, Ray walks into Principal Abby's office and calls her Colonel, but she tells him to drop the formalities, since they have both retired from service. She then notes how similar he is to someone they both knew in the past, and they spend a couple of minutes reminiscing about it. Shortly after this, an instructor arms Ray and Albert with wooden swords for the combat lesson. After he explains the rules, Albert lunges at Ray, but he easily blocks all the attacks, causing Albert to get even more upset. However, when Albert tries one more time, Ray completely destroys his sword, shocking everyone except Abby, who already knows that he is the Ice Blade sorcerer. The next day, Ray walks into the Environmental Research Club, and a group of chiseled muscle daddies stares at him, wondering if this scrawny-looking weakling wants to clean up their sweat. After Evie explains that the club specializes in hardcore hikes for research purposes, they all agree that no one should be discriminated against, including an ordinary. However, Ray's skinny look still raises suspicion, so the club leader orders him to rip the clothes off. Ray immediately strips and achieves an instant pump that makes them all realize he is the real deal. Then, the club leader asks for his license, so Ray shows them all his gold hunter license, leaving them all frozen in shock because only elite members have those, and he is still just an ordinary. After getting accepted into the club, Ray heads to the gardening club, which is led by Rebecca, but after he expresses his desire to study the beauty of flowers, a club member named Dina accuses him of trying to get in Rebecca's pants. After taking a moment to think, Rebecca tells Dina to put Ray to the test and decide if he is worthy to join them. Moments later, Dina takes him to a rooftop space before explaining that he has to give the entire place a makeover so they can build a new garden. The next day, Evie shows up to offer moral support and show off his handstand while Dina secretly watches Ray, wondering how he has gotten so far already. The following day, he starts laying some bricks, but then Rebecca shows up with a little something for lunch. Moments later, he eats the fruit sandwich and says they taste amazing. So Rebecca describes how she negotiated with the academy to make it a staple at the cafeteria. Just then, they hear students fighting and watch from the edge as two guys work on their sword skills. Rebecca then explains that the Magic Chevalier is coming up, a contest where they decide on which student is the strongest swordsman. She then asks Ray if he is going, and after he says yes, she finally notices his massive guns and stares like a fangirl before asking if she can touch them. Ray agrees, so she grabs his arms and says they look better than Goku's. The next day, Dina and everyone in the gardening club are shocked to see that Ray has already completed the garden makeover, so Dina reluctantly admits that he is good enough to join the club. Much later, Abby summons Ray and gives him a letter explaining that a spy from the Empire has infiltrated their kingdom and might be in the academy. After asking him to share anything he finds, she explains that it has to be done in secret because the kingdom is in a political mess right now. A couple of minutes after this, Ray spots Clarice staring into a random bush and startles her. He quickly apologizes and asks what she is doing, so Clarice explains her fascination with bugs and says it's no problem if he thinks she is weird. However, Ray admits that he also likes bugs and says he is proud to be her friend. As she struggles to contain her excitement, Ray says he would like to talk about some bugs he has seen in the woods whenever she has the time. The next day, in class, Gray says they will be having a practical class in the forest much later, so they all have to form groups of 4. As soon as she leaves the class, a bunch of students start begging Amelia to form a group with them, but all she can think about is Ray. He is also wondering how he can form a group, but then Evie offers to join him, which comes as a surprise. Ray reminds him that he is not that good at sorcery, but Evie says it doesn't matter so long as he can move his body. After thanking him, Ray walks over to Elisa and asks if she will join, but Elisa says it's pointless because she is too weak to help them. However, Ray suddenly grabs her by the face and says they need all the help they can get, so she agrees. Just then, Amelia asks if the last spot is taken, and Ray says she didn't even need to ask, but while they all get excited, the rest of the class watches with envy. Much later, they all assemble right outside the forest, and Gray explains that they are to reach a specific goal in the center of the forest after collecting stamps at various checkpoints and get back in 24 hours. With that said, they all split into their various groups, and Evie suggests taking the lead with Ray while Amelia and Elisa stay back and support. However, Ray says he works better from the middle and says Amelia would be a better fit leading with Evie, while Elisa supports him. After they agree, Evie notes that Ray seems awfully calm about the mission, so Ray reminds him that he grew up in a backwoods forest, so the woods are pretty much like home. Just then, the signal goes off, so they all take off running into the forest, and in just a few minutes, Elisa runs into their first monster. After Ray easily slices it in half, they all get shocked and wonder what kind of psycho forest he grew up in. They then spend the rest of the day fighting monsters and locating the stamps Gray was talking about. By nightfall, they find a spot to camp out, and the girls finally take the opportunity to ask Ray how on earth he learned to fight such powerful monsters with ease. Ray once again claims it's because of the forest he grew up in, but Amelia struggles to believe him. Evie then says she is the weird one here because she easily relates to an ordinary, despite being the first daughter of the top noble family. After she explains her hatred for classism and says she has come this far without her family's help, Evie tells Ray that they are counting on him, but this makes him think back to an old teammate who said the same thing before a tragic battle. Much later, Evie and the girls are asleep, so Ray keeps a lookout and recalls the time an old friend master told him to keep his identity hidden after enrolling in the academy. The next morning, just as they set out to complete the quest, someone starts screaming deep inside the forest, so Ray takes off like his legs have rocket fuel. Moments later, he sees Albert about to get his insides ripped out, so he quickly takes the hideous monster out. However, Albert still refuses his help and starts cussing him out until Evie and the girls catch up. As they help Albert's teammates, Amelia sees the massive beast and asks Ray who he really is. But then a mysterious spy throws a magic dart into the monster, causing it to revive into something even more terrifying. Ray immediately rushes in and swings his sword, but the monster actually blocks the hit, which catches Ray off guard a little. The monster attacks back, Ray blocks it too, and both of them get stuck pushing against each other. Ray already knows something is off because there is no reason a monster this strong should be inside a place made for amateur sorcerers, unless somebody messed with something they should not have touched. He then jumps back and lets the others move in. Amelia throws up a wall of flames between Ray and the monster. Evie picks up a huge rock with pure caveman energy and launches it. Then Elisa uses wind magic to boost the rock so it slams into the monster properly instead of falling over. The hit knocks the monster off balance, so Ray jumps in immediately and slices the thing clean in half before it can recover. Everybody starts cheering for Ray after the fight, but Elisa is still shaken because that monster was way stronger than expected, and her legs basically stop cooperating with her. Ray just picks her up and carries her on his back to the school. Much later, the results finally come out, and Ray's team wins the competition by a huge gap, but almost none of the students look happy about it because an ordinary person winning against magic users damages their fragile ego made of eggshells. Ray notices it instantly, but he really doesn't care anymore since people have been looking down on him for basically his whole life. The next day, Ray goes to visit his master, who turns out to be Dr. Lydia Ainsworth herself, the author Elisa is in love with. She's been teaching him ever since he was young, so the guy basically got raised by the final boss of magic nerds. He greets her, they sit down together, and have tea and cake like two old friends friends instead of student and teacher. Lydia tells him that she's working on new research, and this time it focuses on the human brain. Ray gets interested, so she explains everything to him in detail. After that, Ray takes Lydia out for a walk through the woods since she uses a wheelchair. While walking around, they talk about life and normal daily stuff, and Lydia asks him how things are going at school. Ray tells her he actually made some friends, which makes her really happy because the guy used to be a sad, lonely loser. She then tells him to take care of himself and the people around him, then gives him a small book she wrote for him before they part ways. The next day, Ray goes out for a run and runs into Elisa on the way. She's heading to the library to study, so Ray asks if he can come along. Elisa gets completely caught off guard by this, but she agrees anyway. They both go change first, then head to the library together. Elisa grabs another book about Lydia's experiments, while Ray reads the book Lydia gave him the day before. Later on, they leave the library and spot Clarice nearby, who was apparently there too. Ray invites her to eat lunch with them, and she agrees. After lunch, Clarice and Elisa leave together while Ray starts heading home alone, but before he gets far, he spots Amelia getting out of a cab. He greets her, and she tells him that she just came from a family meeting. The two of them decide to take a walk together to a nearby park, and Ray tells her about spending the day with Clarice and Elisa. Amelia clearly gets jealous after hearing about Ray spending the whole day with Elisa and Clarice, so she immediately asks him to go out with her too, and with no hesitation, Ray just agrees, like it is the most normal thing ever. The two of them then head to a mall, and Amelia starts trying on different dresses while making Ray judge all of them, and Ray somehow survives this terrifying high-level mission. At one point, Amelia suddenly runs out of the dressing room, wearing basically only her underclothes because she spotted a spider inside. Ray handles it pretty calmly, though, and still, the whole outing goes well, and the two walk back to the school together while the sun starts setting. Before Ray can finally relax, though, Miss Grady calls him over for tea. She apologizes for how badly people treat him just because he is an ordinary person without magic. Ray then tells her that it really doesn't bother him anymore since he is already used to that kind of treatment. Miss Grady still feels bad about it and promises she is going to work even harder from now on. More than anything, she wants to become a great teacher for him, so Ray thanks her for caring, and she thanks him too. Meanwhile, over in the forest, Albert is losing his marbles due to his hatred for Ray, and the mysterious spy from earlier can't get enough of it. The next day, Ray spends time at the gym with Evie and the rest of his gym bros, who overdose on protein shakes. After training, Evie invites him to go buy protein with them, but Ray politely turns it down because he already has plans. He says he needs to go meet Rebecca since she invited him to the gardening club, and Evie accepts it and moves on. Later on, Ray heads over to the gardening club, where Rebecca makes him tea first. After that, she takes him out to the terrace garden and shows him a bunch of plants with magical properties. Some of them are normal looking, others are straight up carnivorous plants that look like they are waiting for someone to make a mistake. Ray actually pays attention, clearly interested, while Rebecca explains everything. Rebecca then thanks him for being her friend since she usually struggles a bit talking with the rest of the club, even though they are nice people, and she also never really gets to teach them the deeper stuff since they are not that interested in it. Ray just tells her that he's actually into it and wants to learn everything she knows. The next day, Ray goes to the main grounds where sword practice is happening. Amelia is already in a duel, fighting another girl from class who is clearly outmatched. Amelia keeps pushing her back easily and then finishes her by knocking the sword out of her hand. Right after winning, Amelia turns to the instructor and asks to fight Ray next. The instructor hesitates since Amelia is one of the strongest students, and Ray is not really known for magic or flashy skills. But Amelia ignores all that and directly challenges Ray herself, asking if he has a problem with it. Ray says he's fine with it and walks into the arena. The fight starts, and Amelia attacks first. Ray blocks it, and she keeps going with a full series of strikes, but Ray keeps blocking and redirecting them. He notices she's not just strong, she's also really fast and clean with her movements. Amelia also praises his sword skills before attacking once more, staying on offense the whole time while Ray keeps defending and redirecting her attacks. Then the whole thing reminds Ray of training with his father back in the forest. His style changes a bit, and he redirects one of her attacks, going for a strong counter, but stops right at the last moment when he realizes it would actually hurt her badly, so he drops the sword instead. Everyone freezes for a moment, and the instructor declares Amelia the winner. Ray gets up after the match and shakes Amelia's hand while she immediately asks why he stopped before landing the final hit. Ray doesn't really answer properly, probably because explaining that he almost accidentally folded her in half during school practice would make lunch awkward. Later, the group goes to eat together, and Evie keeps asking Ray about his old life before the academy. Ray talks about training in the jungle when he was younger, like he's Tarzan, while the others slowly realize that this guy did not grow up with normal human activities at all. Then Albert suddenly walks over and slams his hands on the table, challenging Ray to a duel while his little squad stands behind him, hyping him up like backup dancers. Ray accepts, and later, everyone heads to the forest where a barrier has already been set up around the area. Clarice notices that nobody outside can hear or see anything happening in there, so Ray asks about the rules, and Albert tosses him a sword before casually pulling out a real blade himself. Even his own friends get shocked because they thought this was going to be normal practice fighting. Albert attacks before Ray even picks up the sword, but Ray dodges and grabs it anyway. Albert completely immediately loses his mind and keeps screaming that he's going to unalive him while throwing attacks non-stop. He starts launching fireballs too, but Ray dodges all of them easily. One finally gets close enough to hit him, so Ray just cuts through the fire itself, which surprises everyone because apparently, normal people are not supposed to do stuff like that. Albert starts spamming bigger attacks, and Ray keeps dodging and cutting through everything while running straight toward him. Eventually, Albert summons a giant flaming dragon, but Ray cuts that in half, too, like it is cardboard. Albert drops to his knees, crying immediately after losing, and before anybody can even process what happened, gravity magic suddenly crushes everybody except Ray to the ground. The creepy hooded figure from earlier walks out of the forest, talking about sacrifice and greater good nonsense, then reveals herself to be Professor Gray. Ray realizes she has been behind the strange monster attacks and missing students the whole time. She was experimenting on people to study sorcery further, basically turning the school into a very illegal science project like Orochimaru. Gray says that Ray can't beat her because he only fights well up close. Then she starts attacking him with giant fire serpents. Ray keeps dodging while his friends stay stuck on the ground, unable to move. Gray eventually gets tired of chasing him and sends the attack toward the others instead. That finally makes Ray stop holding back, and ice suddenly spreads everywhere as he blocks the attack with a giant wall, with his hair turning blue like it's some Super Saiyan form. Gray immediately freaks out because the legendary Iceblade sorcerer was supposed to be gone after the war, so Ray tells her that the title simply got passed down to him instead. Gray completely crashes out after hearing that and starts throwing massive attacks everywhere, but Ray destroys everything easily with his ice powers, while Gray slowly realizes that she picked the worst possible student to mess with. She eventually tries running away, but Ray shoots ice blades through her leg and drops her instantly. While begging for her life, she offers him power and magic secrets, then immediately tries sneaking another attack because she apparently never learns. Ray blocks it easily and walks toward her with his sword ready to finish things, but Gray suddenly pulls a strange key from her necklace and jams it straight into her own head. Some weird liquid spreads through her body and starts turning her into a rampaging monster. The magic barrier finally disappears, and everybody slowly gets back up after the gravity spell stops crushing them into the ground. Ray then jumps into the air and clashes with Gray, before slamming her back down like she's some plush dummy. Gray gets angry and fires another huge blast of flames at him, but Ray blocks it easily and creates a bunch of floating ice swords around himself. Gray gets caught completely off guard by this because she didn't know this man had a pay-to-win unlimited weapon inventory turn on the whole time. She throws a giant fireball at him, hoping bigger attacks finally do something, but Ray stops it midair and destroys it completely without even touching it. Ray says some deep speech to her after that, but Gray decides to go all in for one final attack. She creates a bunch of giant dark magic hands and launches them at Ray, but he fires ice blades straight through them and destroys everything instantly. She tries the same thing again because why not spam repeat, but Ray destroys those too. While all this is happening, Amelia and the others finally notice something bad. Ray's body is slowly getting covered in ice, and the guy's basically freezing himself while using all this power. Even Gray notices that he's losing control a bit, especially after blood starts running from his nose while he acts like some nonchalant final boss. Gray sees that weakness and rushes him with one massive attack. Ray blocks with his sword at first, but the hit finally shatters the blade completely. Amelia watches in horror, while Gray probably thinks she finally won after getting bullied for the last 10 minutes straight. Too bad, cause Ray still has one more move left. Right after losing the sword, he unleashes a giant blizzard around Gray. Her whole body gets swallowed by snow and ice instantly, catching her completely off guard. By the time the storm clears, Gray is frozen solid, with icy roses growing around her body. Right after that, Ray collapses from exhaustion and changes back to normal. Even while half dead on the floor, the main thing on his mind is that everybody else survived and nobody got hurt. Later, Ray wakes up inside the hospital dorm and immediately sees Lydia looking down at him. She's relieved to see that he's awake and okay. Abby also shows up and tells him not to worry because all of his friends are completely safe, and thanks to him, nobody even got injured. Abby then tells Ray he did a great job, and even Lydia pats his head and says that she's proud of him before inviting him over anytime he wants. She also tells him that his friends are waiting outside, and the second she leaves, the room gets flooded by the entire group surrounding his bed like he just came back from war, which technically he kind of did. Ray apologizes for hiding the truth from them, and finally explains everything properly. He tells them that he's one of the 7 grand sorcerers, the Iceblade sorcerer himself. He explains that he fought in the Great War a few years ago and lost control of his powers back then, basically turning the battlefield into a bootleg Antarctica. Lydia was the one who helped him recover afterward, which is why he keeps sealing most of his powers now. He also explains that this is why he always acts badly at magic during class. Ray admits that he's sent people to the Lord before and says that he understands if they don't want to stay friends with him after learning the truth. Meanwhile, his friends look at him like he is stupid for even worrying about that after literally risking his life to save all of them 5 minutes ago. They all reassure him immediately and tell him that they trust him completely because they know he's a good person. Later that night, after everyone leaves, Albert sneaks into Ray's hospital room. Ray's already awake, though, and casually greets him like he was expecting a late-night visitor. Albert looks embarrassed and admits that he came to apologize for everything he did. Ray tells him that apologizing takes courage and says he forgives him. Then he starts talking about how everybody is born equal and bloodlines do not matter. The next day, Ray finally returns to class and finds out that the replacement for Professor Gray is Caroline, one of Gray's old comrades. Caroline immediately gives off this wild, chaotic, and overly vibey energy the second she appears. Ray instantly gets worried because he already knows how troublesome she can be. After Caroline tells the class about the tournament coming up soon, Ray immediately goes to Abby's office and begs her to remove Caroline from the teaching position. The man looks genuinely concerned for the future generation because, apparently, dealing with monsters was less stressful than dealing with whatever Caroline has going on. Abby tells him that they only hired Caroline because she was the only person available and willing to take the job. Ray gets so desperate that he straight up offers to teach the class himself if it means getting rid of her. Then Caroline suddenly appears behind Ray and immediately starts bothering him right in front of Abby without even pretending to behave professionally. Ray instantly escapes the room like a man. The next day, Ray watches the tournament qualifiers from the ramparts with Clarice. The two of them look over the students and discuss possible threats in the competition while Ray predicts how different matches will end with scary accuracy. Eventually, Amelia enters the arena, and within 6 seconds, she completely destroys her opponent and leaves. The crowd goes crazy, cheering for her, but Amelia herself looks completely unsatisfied. Ray notices the problem, which is that she's too strong compared to everybody around her, so none of these fights challenge her at all. Winning has basically become routine homework. Later on, Ray goes to Rebecca and asks if she knows anything about Amelia's possible opponents. Rebecca tells him about a girl named Ariane, Amelia's longtime rival. The two used to be close friends, but things got bad after their rivalry kept growing over the years. The next day, Ray and the others watch Amelia fight again. She wins her final qualifying match easily, too, and secures her spot in the upcoming tournament, but once again, she does not look happy at all. Everyone else is celebrating, while Amelia looks like someone who just finished mandatory chores. That night, Ray decides that he wants to help her. He pulls out the training book Lydia gave him so he can continue her methods even while she is not around. The next evening, Ray catches Amelia while she's walking back to her dorm and asks if she's actually satisfied with her victories. Amelia admits that she is not, and she says that she still does not feel ready and is convinced Orion will beat her again, just like last time, which also destroyed their friendship. Ray shows her Lydia's training book and tells her that there's still almost a month before the tournament starts. If she wants, he can train her personally and help her get stronger. Amelia agrees immediately without knowing she just accepted the worst fitness subscription of her entire life. The next morning, Amelia goes out to meet Ray for training, only for this man to suddenly jump out wearing a weird, low-budget Power Rangers instructor mask. He tells her that from now on, he's her master and she has to follow everything he says without questioning it. Amelia hesitates at first because the whole setup already feels illegal, but after Ray keeps yelling at her with fake serious mentor energy, she finally agrees. The very first thing he tells her to do is run 20 kilometers around the school without using magic at all. Amelia immediately says that's impossible, but Ray doesn't care, though, and tells her that she has no choice. The two start running together, and by the end, Amelia falls dramatically onto her knees because she's not used to this kind of training at all. Meanwhile, Ray casually tells her this was just a light warm-up and that the real training starts tomorrow. At that moment, Amelia probably realizes she accidentally signed up for military service. From the next day onward, Ray starts training her seriously. Weighted one-arm push-ups, pull-ups, non-stop running, and pushing giant boulders uphill like she's cosplaying Sisyphus. Half the training honestly looks less like exercise and more like punishment. Amelia gets so exhausted every day that she starts sleeping through classes constantly, which makes all her friends worried, while Ray walks around acting like this is perfectly normal, healthy behavior. The next morning, Ray marches straight into the girls' dorm area and starts smashing pans together while yelling for Amelia to wake up. Rebecca and another girl immediately rush over and start shouting at him because this man really entered a girl's dorm like his compass is tweaking. Ray apologizes and claims that the training is important, but while he's talking, Amelia quietly escapes the dorm and runs away. Ray notices and immediately chases after her like this is a prison break. He checks the library first and finds Clarice and Elisa studying there. He asks if they've seen Amelia, but they tell him no. So naturally, Ray decides the next reasonable step is using echolocation like a bat. Using sound waves, he tracks Amelia down to an empty classroom where she's hiding. Ray grabs her hand, drags her back outside, and gives her extra laps as punishment for trying to escape training. The next day, somehow gets even stranger as Ray visits the environmental club where his fellow muscle daddies are relaxing in a sauna. He asks the club president to organize a cheerleading squad made entirely of muscular dudes for Amelia's training, and the president agrees immediately. Then the guy casually hands Ray a bag full of women's clothes that he apparently requested earlier. The next morning, Ray fully dresses as a woman and walks around campus while Amelia continues her training laps, completely unaware it's him. The disguise somehow works too, so Ray then heads towards the school, where Ariane studies and sneaks across the lawn hidden inside inside a cardboard box like an overgrown hermit crab. While crawling around, he spots a girl crying nearby and slowly sneaks toward her, giving her a very awkward stare down that even stops her from crying. The crying girl turns out to be Orian's little sister, and she says she's crying because she can't find her older sister anywhere. Ray tells her to calm down because he'll help her look for her, and she immediately trusts this random, disguised stranger. Ray walks around campus with her while still dressed like a noble girl, and somehow, everybody completely buys it. Students keep getting distracted by how pretty she looks while Ray quietly suffers through the weirdest stealth mission of his life. Eventually, the little sister spots Ariane sitting under some fancy Victorian-looking structure while drinking tea like she's royalty. The little girl happily runs over to her, even though Ariane was not even searching for her in the first place. Ariane just welcomes them calmly and invites Ray to sit down, while her little sister basically gets ignored again immediately. Ray sits down, and Ariane immediately tells him that she already knows he's not from her academy and wants him to introduce himself properly. Ray instantly assumes she figured out he's secretly a guy, so he answers in his normal voice. Ariane gets completely shocked because she actually had no idea. The disguise was apparently working perfectly until Ray sabotaged himself. Ray introduces himself as Ray White from Arnold Academy, and Ariane says that she already knows who he is since he became famous for being one of the first commoners accepted into such an elite school. She has also heard stories about his combat abilities. She then admits that she has wanted to fight him for a while and challenges him to a duel. Ray agrees immediately, and before the fight starts, Ariane awkwardly asks Ray to keep using the girl voice because hearing a deep voice come out of that disguise keeps damaging her brain, and Ray actually agrees. The duel starts, and Ariane immediately attacks with insane speed. Ray barely dodges the first strike before blocking the second one. Ariane keeps pressing forward and quickly shows why she's Amelia's biggest rival. She moves smoothly, mixes swordplay with magic, and lands a powerful slash that breaks Ray's sword clean in half, giving her the win. After the duel, a lady suddenly takes Ariane's little sister away, and Ariane barely reacts at all before immediately turning back toward Ray to ask if he plans on entering the tournament. Ray tells her that he can't participate, but explains that he's helping someone else train instead. When Ariane asks who, he reveals that it is Amelia. The second Amelia's name comes up, Ariane's whole mood changes instantly. She immediately starts asking how Amelia is doing, and Ray tells her that she's gotten much stronger and will be far more dangerous in their next fight. He straight up tells Ariane that Amelia might actually beat her this time. Instead of getting angry, Ariane just smiles and says that she's looking forward to it. By the time Ray gets back to his academy, the sun is already setting. On the way there, he spots a white-haired girl running toward him while crying. She slips on a rock, and before she can fully crash into the ground, Ray catches her. Turns out, she is Rebecca's little sister, and she explains that she's been nervous about joining the academy because she heard the students there can be pretty mean. But after Ray helps her so casually, she suddenly decides that maybe the place isn't so bad after all. Then she thanks him and runs off immediately. Ray heads back to the ramparts, where Amelia has just finished training and looks completely exhausted after another day of Ray's boot camp from hell. He praises her for working hard, and the girls nearby finally realize that the mysterious, pretty girl from earlier was actually Ray in disguise. Everyone gets shocked while Ray casually explains that he was just on a mission. The next day, Ray brings everybody to visit Lydia. The group introduces themselves properly, and Elisa completely loses composure because she's a huge fan of Lydia's research. She even shows Lydia a journal full of notes about her experiments, like she's some sort of stan. After the introductions, Lydia pulls Amelia aside privately and reassures her that she is already strong enough. She even reveals that Ray has been constantly sending her letters about Amelia's progress during training. So while Amelia was suffering through boulder pushing and forced cardio torture, Ray was secretly writing proud coach updates in the background. Lydia tells Amelia that she truly believes she can win the tournament. After that comes Amelia's final test. Ray takes her into the jungle and fights her directly in a mock battle. This time, Amelia actually manages to win, proving that the training finally paid off and that she survived Ray's nonsense for a reason. The next day, the tournament finally begins. The stadium is packed with students and spectators from different academies, all showing up for magical school violence entertainment. Before her first match, Amelia runs into Ariane backstage. The two look at each other coldly and awkwardly before Amelia heads into the arena. Her opponent is a green-haired guy carrying a giant sword bigger than any success he's seen. The fight starts, and he immediately swings wildly at her with huge attacks, but his movements are slow and messy. Amelia easily dodges everything by jumping around him, then places a small fire mine behind him. The second he turns around to attack again, the mine explodes in his face and destroys his rose, instantly ending the match. Amelia wins easily while the crowd goes crazy, cheering for her. Ray smiles watching the fight, but leaves afterward and heads toward Albert, who is sitting alone, preparing for his own match. Albert honestly feels like a different person now. Instead of acting like an angry rich brat, he is calmly thinking through strategies for the fight. Ray tells him that he believes in him and even says that he has what it takes to win the whole tournament. Albert genuinely appreciates the encouragement, but unfortunately for him, his opponent turns out to be Oriane herself. The match starts, and surprisingly, Albert actually holds his own. The two trade attacks attacks back and forth while the crowd watches in shock because nobody expected Albert to survive longer than 5 business minutes. Eventually, Ariane lands a magical strike that knocks him down. Normally, Albert probably would have quit there, but Ray's support actually changed him a bit, so he forces himself back up again. He even manages to disarm Ariane for a moment, completely catching her off guard. Sadly, the comeback dies instantly because Ariane grabs the sword with her bare hands, snaps it in half, then punches Albert straight in the stomach and wins the fight anyway. Meanwhile, Ray heads toward a meeting called by Abby, completely unaware that the environmental club president is secretly following him around for some reason. Back at the arena, Carolyn decides the best way to entertain the crowd is by randomly turning the tournament into a concert and performing like she is the halftime show at the magical Super Bowl. Later on, Ray finds out that Carla is actually an intelligence agent, while the buff muscle daddy, Lex, is her younger brother and also the head of student security. The two of them belong to the Hale family along with a bunch of people wearing suspiciously dramatic uniforms, and their entire job is handling intelligence and security matters for the kingdom. Abby then explains the real problem. A terrorist group called the Grim Ray Yapers has infiltrated the tournament, and their goal is either kidnapping or unaliving daughters from noble families. So while everybody else is focused on flashy magic fights, there is secretly a whole assassination plot happening in the background. Back in the arena, Rebecca wins her match and advances to the finals. Then, a fighter named Luke finishes his own battle in literally 2 seconds, leaving the entire crowd shocked. Meanwhile, Alyssa and Clarice get worried about Amelia and tell Ray that she's locked herself in her room and refuses to talk to anyone. At the same time, Ariane is training like a complete monster, destroying punching bags and going full championship mode, while Amelia is mentally crashing inside her dorm. Later that night, Ray decides to talk to her. He stays outside her door and gives one of those long emotional speeches. Somehow it works, and Amelia finally lets him inside. Once they talk properly, Amelia admits that she's terrified of losing to Ariane again. Everybody around her expects so much from her now, and the fear of failing is completely messing with her head. She even says that life feels meaningless if she can't overcome her rival. Ray tells her that life can feel pointless sometimes, but people are allowed to create their own reasons to keep going and enjoy living. He says that she should focus on making happy memories with the people around her instead of trapping herself inside fear all the time. Then he holds her hands and tells her that he wants to stay by her side no matter what, and she immediately breaks down, crying into his arms. After crying her sad life out, Amelia gets embarrassed and pretends to fall asleep so she doesn't have to face him anymore. While watching her rest, Ray remembers their old training match where he told her to destroy the rose on his chest. Back then, Ray attacked first and pushed her back, but Amelia spotted a small opening and used her butterfly-shaped fire magic to burn the rose anyway. That moment convinced Ray that she could overcome almost anything if she believed in herself properly. So before leaving, he tells her once again that he believes in her completely. The next day finally shows up for the huge match between Amelia and Ariane, the 2 strongest rookies in the kingdom. Elisa worries that Amelia probably did not sleep enough, but Ray tells her that he already handled the situation because he spent the entire night in Amelia's room. The second he says that, Avi instantly gets the wrong idea because his brain is always in plot mode. Thankfully, Elisa says that Ray is too socially clueless to realize how suspicious that sounds. Meanwhile, Clarice runs through a dark hallway trying to make it to Amelia's match in time, but behind her, a mysterious figure slowly drops from the ceiling without her noticing. Back in the changing room, Amelia quietly asks Ray for one more hug because she is still nervous before the match. Ray hugs her and tells her that she already has everything needed to win. Out in the arena, the announcer is about to start the match when Lex suddenly interrupts everything. He tells Ray that Clarice has gone missing along with 8 other noble students. Ray immediately trusts his instincts and heads below the building to investigate. Back in the arena, Caroline and the other presenter finally begin the match between Amelia and Ariane. Ariane instantly attacks aggressively. She throws her sword upward and activates lightning magic flowing through her armor, boosting her speed to ridiculous levels. Then she launches the sword straight toward Amelia so fast that it slams her to the ground before most people even process what happened. The audience completely loses it watching Ariane move like somebody activated cheat codes. But when Ariane rushes in again, Amelia stays calm this time. She creates a spinning cloud of pink smoke that suddenly explodes and blasts Ariane backward, catching her completely off guard. So Amelia finally starts showing that Ray's insane training was not just organized abuse with extra cardio. Meanwhile, underground, Ray finds Clarice and the missing students all unconscious inside a hidden hall. He wakes Clarice up, but before they can leave, a magical barrier appears around them. Ray immediately realizes the Grim Reapers cast an interference spell to isolate the area from the outside world. Clarice starts panicking while Ray tries to think, so he finally tells her to be quiet for once so he can focus. Then he throws her over his shoulder and starts running through the halls to lure the Grim Reapers toward himself instead. The assassins attack, and Ray creates 4 floating magic swords to fight back. Clarice continues screaming in the background non-stop, and Ray straight up warns her she might bite her own tongue off at this rate. Suddenly, the whole room goes dark, hiding the enemies completely, but Ray responds by activating an insanely powerful spell that destroys the barrier around the entire area. The shockwave even reaches the arena above and completely cancels out Ariane's magic attack mid-fight, dropping her to the ground. Everybody in the stadium gets confused, while Caroline instantly recognizes the technique as Ray's special anti-material field. Ray then freezes the entire floor with ice, trapping the escaping Grim Reapers before they can run away. Lex arrives and tells Ray that he can handle the rest from there, so Ray can return to the arena. Back in the fight, both Amelia and Ariane are exhausted as the announcer calls for the final round. Ariane decides to stop holding back completely and charges herself with an absurd amount of lightning power, far stronger than anything she used earlier. The audience immediately gets nervous because of the amount of power flying around. Amelia realizes something terrifying, too, that Ariane had basically been holding back the whole time until now. Ariane charges forward at insane speed, and Amelia tries stopping her with another explosion, but Ariane dodges through it easily, then punches her high into the air like she is sending a volleyball into orbit. Amelia lands, struggles back onto her feet, and then immediately gets blasted upward again by an even stronger attack. Everybody watches in horror as she crashes hard onto the arena floor. She tries standing up again, but cannot move properly anymore. Slowly, she starts accepting defeat. Then, right before she fully gives up, memories of all her friends flash through her head, and at the same moment, Ray finally runs back to the arena entrance and shouts her name, asking her to stand up. Amelia slowly lifts her head, and something changes in her eyes. Red light starts glowing as magical butterflies appear around her. Then she activates a completely new power called Butterfly Effect, surrounding herself in a giant protective beam. Ariane stares at Amelia in disbelief while Amelia tells her to give up already because touching her now is basically impossible. But Ariane is way too stubborn to stop, so she keeps charging in anyway and throwing attacks that do absolutely nothing. Caroline explains that Amelia's magic comes from something called chaos theory and the butterfly effect. Apparently, the power works by interfering with events themselves and overriding what should normally happen, which sounds very smart and complicated, but the short version is basically Amelia unlocked premium reality hacks. Ariane keeps attacking anyway, so Amelia sends one glowing butterfly towards her. A second later, Ariane gets blasted backward by a sudden explosion and crashes to the ground while her dad and little sister panic in the audience. Meanwhile, Clarice keeps screaming support for Amelia, but then Amelia suddenly starts bleeding from her nose and coughing up blood because her body is struggling to handle the new power. Caroline explains that her brain is getting overloaded from the magic, while Ray realizes that she's dangerously close to overheating herself. At this point, even Ariane gets worried about her, but Amelia refuses to stop fighting, and Ariane refuses to, too. She rushes in with another full-powered attack, but Amelia dodges it and leaves Ariane punching straight through pink powder instead. Amelia counters with another explosion that destroys Ariane's hand shield, though it barely injures her directly. After that, the fight basically turns into two exhausted maniacs refusing to fall over first. They kick each other at the same time, clash evenly, then even headbutt each other with identical results. Neither one can gain a clear advantage anymore because both are running completely on stubbornness and friendship flashbacks. The crowd goes crazy, cheering them on, and Ariane's father and little sister support her loudly while Evie and Elisa scream for Amelia. Everybody in the arena gets caught up in the fight except Amelia's dad, who still stands there looking emotionally unavailable as usual. Amelia finally lands a clean hit on Ariane, but by now, both girls are so exhausted that it barely changes anything. Still, neither of them wants to lose. So, with the last bit of strength they have left, they both charge toward each other for one final attack. Eventually, one rose finally breaks, ending the match. A little later, Ariane wakes up resting on Amelia's lap and realizes she lost. The first thing she does is roast Amelia's face for looking terrible, and Amelia does the same. Then Ariane admits that Amelia has become incredibly strong and tells her to stop crying already, since she actually won. Amelia says she only managed to get this far because of everyone's help, but also admits that Ariane herself was the biggest reason she kept trying to improve. Losing to her pushed her to become stronger. Ariane then reveals that she also kept training hard because she wanted to become someone Amelia could look up to after their first fight damaged Amelia's confidence. Both girls start crying and apologizing to each other while hugging. Ariane fully accepts her defeat and congratulates Amelia properly, and right after that, Amelia gets officially announced as the winner of the Rookies Racket Tournament. Later in the hallway, the fathers of both girls meet. Amelia's dad still looks permanently allergic to joy and says that Amelia could have performed even better. Meanwhile, Ariane's father tells him to relax and enjoy life for once. The two dads then start competing through their daughters, both warning each other that next time their own girl will win instead. Later, Ray visits Amelia in recovery. She says she's feeling better and admits that even though Ray's training methods were complete torture, she actually enjoyed parts of it and is glad all the suffering was not pointless. But then she suddenly remembers the nights Ray spent in her room helping her mentally prepare, and she immediately gets embarrassed. Amelia asks if Ray already knew about her special magic power all along. Ray tells her he only realized that she was incredibly talented during their training match, but he never knew exactly what kind of ability she would awaken. He congratulates her and tells her that talent can be inherited, but her victory only happened because she worked insanely hard on top of that talent. The next day, Amelia feels happy because she no longer feels trapped by noble expectations. Meanwhile, the group heads out to support Rebecca during the tournament finals. Rebecca's opponent turns out to be Lucas Forst, the guy who deleted his opponent in 2 seconds earlier. The fight begins, and Rebecca draws her sword. But before anybody can even react, Lucas stomps the ground and activates a move called the 8th Secret Technique, instantly covering the arena in darkness. Within literally seconds, Rebecca's rose gets shattered, and Lucas gets declared the winner. Later in the hallway, Lucas passes by Ray and immediately recognizes him as the famous Ice Blade Sorcerer. But Ray surprises him by revealing that he already knows Lucas is the new Peerless Blade Sorcerer. Ray asks why somebody that strong even bothered joining a student tournament, and Lucas admits that the whole thing was basically a message directed at Ray. He wanted Ray to know a new rival had appeared. Lucas then challenges Ray to a future fight 1 year from now, promising that he'll prove the Peerless Blade Sorcerer is stronger than the Ice Blade Sorcerer. Somewhere else, Carol keeps annoying Lydia until Abby finally interrupts and takes them to see the captured Grim Reapers. Carol then uses her weird hypnotic magic to trap the terrorists inside a fake dream world where she forces them to dance around. Carol enjoys herself way too much while trying to interrogate them, but the second she orders them to reveal information about their organization, all their heads suddenly explode one after another, and Carol immediately collapses from the trauma. With the tournament finally over, Abby gives the closing speech and thanks all the participants for competing. But while everything seems peaceful again, Rebecca notices her father secretly entering a room with a mysterious man. Later during class, Ray suggests the class should run a maid cafe for the upcoming cultural festival, but the noble students immediately reject the idea. What Ray does not know is that Amelia secretly planted the whole idea into his head earlier, because she always wanted a maid cafe but knew nobody would agree normally. So she manipulated him by telling him to imagine everybody wearing cute maid outfits. Ray immediately starts imagining Carla in a maid's dress and gets completely convinced, folding with zero pressure. Even after the class keeps complaining, Ray gives a dramatic speech about how revolutionary it would be for maids to act powerfully instead of submissive, and somehow this nonsense actually starts working. Then Caroline appears wearing a maid outfit herself, and the entire class immediately changes sides. While Ray and Amelia celebrate their small victory, Dinah suddenly shows up announcing that Rebecca just got engaged. At the same time, Rebecca is seen walking with the same mysterious man she earlier seen speaking privately with her father. Later on, Rebecca's father is shown signing an agreement with Rebecca's future fiancé. The deal gets sealed using blood and magic, and after the contract is completed, the fiancé reassures Rebecca's father that his daughter will be in safe hands. Somewhere else, some weird pink-haired creature is seen swallowing magical remains from a dead mage. Then a masked man shows up and calls him the glutton. The masked guy then casually uses a giant magic hand to scoop the dead mage's brain out, and it turns out that the dead mage belonged to another evil faction connected to the same eugenics organization from earlier. The masked creep explains that he wants to unite the different groups and rise to the top himself, but to do that, he apparently needs a special vessel, and that vessel just happens to be Rebecca Bradley. The next morning, Ray goes to congratulate Rebecca on her engagement, but the whole conversation feels painfully awkward because Rebecca clearly is not happy about any of this. Still, she says that she plans to stay in school until graduation. Meanwhile, Amelia is completely obsessed with the maid cafe idea and keeps bothering Elisa to wear a maid outfit too. Elisa refuses because the dress shows too much skin for her comfort, but Amelia keeps pushing anyway. Elisa eventually calls Ray for help, hoping he'll save her from Amelia's nonsense. But unfortunately, Ray immediately joins Amelia instead. He starts explaining how amazing she would look as a pixie maid, completely betraying her in seconds. At the same time, the guys in class work hard decorating the festival hall, though their motivation is obviously fake because they are only excited to see the girls wearing maid outfits. Ray then arrives with good news, announcing that every girl agreed to wear the costumes, including Elisa. The boys instantly celebrate like their football team just won a championship, and Albert even tells Ralph that there's basically no man alive who would reject seeing cute girls in maid dresses. Later, Ray heads to the student council room to submit the maid cafe proposal, but notices most of the council members are missing. Rebecca explains that they're avoiding her because they blame her for stealing Cornelia's fiancé. Apparently, the man Rebecca is now engaged to, Lord Evan, was originally supposed to marry another council member. After hearing all this, Ray offers to help handle some of the student council work that got abandoned. Later, Dinah rushes over to Ray and quietly tells him to stay close to Rebecca because the whole engagement feels suspicious to her. She says that Rebecca refuses to explain anything properly because she does not want to drag her friends into trouble, so Ray promises to help Rebecca no matter what. To investigate further, Ray visits Lydia and explains the situation. They learn that Evan's family is one of the strongest sorcery families in the kingdom, even among the top noble houses, so on the surface, the engagement makes sense politically. But Lydia still finds the situation suspicious because Rebecca is not even old enough for marriage yet, so she asks Carla to secretly investigate the matter further. Lydia asks Ray what his class plans to do for the cultural festival, and he tells her about the maid cafe idea. Then, this idiot casually says the whole thing reminds him of how good Carla looks in a maid outfit. The second he says that, Lydia instantly gets jealous and stares directly directly at Carla, who immediately turns red from embarrassment. Ray accidentally starts workplace drama without even trying. Then Lydia asks what he thinks she would look like in a maid's dress. Ray, instead of choosing survival, says it is hard to imagine a gorilla wearing something that cute. Lydia immediately traps him inside giant ice spikes, forcing him to apologize for speaking honestly. The man really looked at one of the strongest women alive and decided bullying was the correct move. Before Ray leaves, Lydia says she plans to visit the festival herself. Ray pretends to sound excited even though he clearly just wants to avoid becoming an ice sculpture. Meanwhile, Rebecca freshens up late at night when she suddenly sees strange visions of Ray as a child fighting on a battlefield. The images hit her so hard that blood starts coming from her eye like it's a Sharingan. She stares at herself in the mirror, wondering why she keeps having nightmares connected to him. Maria notices the blood and asks why Rebecca is even awake so late, but she lies and says that she only woke up because she felt sweaty and wanted a shower. Maria also notices bloody tissues nearby, but Rebecca covers it up by blaming a nosebleed. Before Rebecca leaves, Maria asks if she's truly happy about her engagement. Rebecca pretends like everything is fine and even wishes Maria a happy future marriage, too. But the second she gets back to her room, she completely breaks down crying. Her memories go back to her childhood when Maria used to get bullied constantly for being different, but Rebecca always defended her and helped calm her down whenever things got bad. But after the engagement news came out, Maria asked Rebecca honestly if she was okay with it, and Rebecca replied to her badly, telling her to leave and mind her own business instead. Maria ran off crying and accidentally bumped into Ray, who at the time was still disguised as Lily White. Back in the present, the festival day finally arrives, and Ray's class gets everything ready. The girls show up wearing their maid outfits and instantly leave the boys mentally destroyed. Even the girls themselves get embarrassed when Ray compliments them because the man somehow says nice things with the emotional awareness of a bag of peanuts. Amelia especially gets excited and proudly spins around, showing off her outfit for Ray like she spent weeks waiting for this exact moment. Then she drags Elisa over, too, and Elisa almost dies from embarrassment, but Ray compliments her outfit as well, which immediately annoys Amelia because she wants exclusive ownership over Ray's attention at all times. Meanwhile, Clarice appears dressed like a ghost for her class haunted house, which honestly fits perfectly because she already acts like somebody who crawls out of cursed hallways naturally. Later, Ray notices Rebecca and offers to walk her home, but halfway there, Evan suddenly appears and decides to join them, immediately ruining Rebecca's mood. Soon after, Lex gathers everyone for a meeting where Carla reveals something disturbing. Evan's household basically looks abandoned, with no signs of regular people actually living there. Yet, Evan himself still attends important political meetings normally, meaning somebody is clearly hiding something huge. The group realizes that Evan is probably connected to the eugenics organization and most likely wants Rebecca specifically because of her magical eyes. Meanwhile, somewhere else, the masked villain and the glutton guy hold their own meeting. The masked man reveals that Rebecca will soon awaken as someone called Cruz, and that this awakening will supposedly open the gates to a place called Akasha. Then the masked man removes his disguise and reveals he is actually the real Evan himself. Rebecca sits crying on her bed when Evan suddenly reaches toward her eye like a complete psychopath. She immediately slaps his hand away, but Evan just laughs and reminds her that everything happening now was part of the contract her father signed to protect the family's noble status. Then he stupidly threatens her younger sister, too, basically making it clear that this engagement is just blackmail with extra steps. The stress causes Rebecca's eyes to start bleeding again, and suddenly, she sees another strange vision. This time, she finds herself on a barren battlefield where a younger Ray is mourning someone named Howard. Ray desperately tries using healing magic to save himself, while Lydia tells him that it's already too late. Ray refuses to accept it until Lydia literally slaps reality back into him. The next day at school, Rebecca keeps wondering if the boy from her visions was actually Ray, and what these dreams are even trying to tell her. Later, Maria secretly asks Ray to meet with her. She introduces herself properly, but Ray instantly starts complimenting her naturally, causing her to blush hard because, apparently, this man is a smooth-talking mage too. Maria asks Ray to help Rebecca even though Rebecca refuses to open up to anyone, so Ray reassures her that he will protect Rebecca no matter what and even pulls Maria into a comforting hug. Unfortunately, Rebecca secretly sees the whole thing from a distance, and watching Ray hug Maria completely destroys her mentally. She spends the whole night unable to sleep, rolling around in bed, overthinking everything like she's maxed out on jealousy. Meanwhile, Ray sits down and starts reading the romance novel he borrowed from the library while explaining the sad love story to Evie. So Rebecca's having an emotional breakdown while Ray is doing book club activities with the boys, completely unaware of the damage around him. The next day goes mostly normally, with Ray spending time with the girls at the maid cafe while everybody continues enjoying the festival. But later that night, Ray has a strange dream himself. In the dream, Rebecca meets him at a graveyard and asks him who he really is. When Ray wakes up, one of his eyes is bleeding too, just like Rebecca's earlier visions. So now both of them are mysteriously connected somehow, which definitely means future suffering is approaching at high speed. The next morning, during his jog, Ray runs into Rebecca by coincidence. The conversation between them becomes painfully awkward, so instead of talking about the giant emotional mess surrounding them, they just discuss the cultural festival. Later on, Ariane and her little sister visit the maid cafe to hang out with Amelia, but the second Ariane notices that Ray's missing, she immediately realizes something ridiculous is about to happen. And right on cue, Ray, the cross-dressing swordsman, appears dressed once again as Lily White. The girls in the cafe instantly lose lose their minds seeing him again because somehow this man keeps becoming prettier every time he puts on the disguise. At this point, Lily White honestly has more aura than half the actual female cast combined, which is probably very upsetting for everybody involved. Turns out Ray's whole Lily White comeback was actually part of some bigger plan he had cooking in the background. Meanwhile, Clara spends the festival having the absolute time of her life scaring random students in her ghost costume like a jobless horror fanatic finally living her dream. Ray keeps acting as the perfect maid inside the cafe, too, collecting attention from basically every girl in the building before eventually changing back into his normal form and spending the rest of the day hanging around Rebecca. At the same time, Maria walks home carrying a picture of herself and Rebecca, when suddenly, a white-haired woman who looks weirdly similar to her appears out of nowhere and warns her that Rebecca is going to be sent to God. Somewhere else, Rebecca's father meets secretly with the school officials and desperately begs Ray to save Rebecca because, apparently, her condition keeps getting worse. Rebecca continues seeing terrifying visions nonstop, and the stress makes blood pour from her eyes constantly. Maria hears her crying alone in the bathroom and feels horrible because she clearly knows that Rebecca's suffering badly, but still refuses to tell anybody the full truth. The next morning, during Ray's jog, Rebecca suddenly approaches him and quietly asks him to look after Maria in the future because soon she'll move out to live with her fiancé. Later during the festival, Rebecca suddenly runs into Evan, and he instantly teleports both of them away. The second this happens, Ray immediately senses something is wrong and rushes out of the hall so fast that everyone around him gets confused. Evie quickly gathers the others together while things start going completely insane. On a rooftop somewhere, Evan tells Rebecca to prepare herself before activating a giant magic seal around them, completely cutting them off from the outside world. At the same time, monsters suddenly appear everywhere below. Ray immediately starts tearing through them one after another, but there are way too many even for him. It basically turns into magical zombie survival mode out of nowhere. Thankfully, the others arrive to help, and Maria activates her butterfly effect to support and protect Ray while everybody else joins the fight too. Evie starts launching monsters into the air with giant kicks, while Albert sets enemies on fire, with Elisa and Claris combining tornado and lightning attacks together to wipe out groups of monsters at once. Amelia also joins in and starts blowing monsters up while intercepting stronger enemies trying to attack from behind. For once, the entire friend group actually moves like a coordinated raid party instead of random teenagers with emotional problems. But even with all that, two of the strongest monsters manage to escape toward the mountain above, where the real main event is happening. Ray's friends immediately tell him to stop wasting time there and go after them. Ray throws off his disguise and rushes toward the mountain alone, but he forgets to change his voice, which his friends yell to remind him. While running, he remembers Rebecca's father explaining the terrible truth behind the Bradley family. Apparently, the family name itself carries a curse connected to Kreese and some massive bloodshed from the past. Rebecca's younger sister, Maria, was even born an albino because of the effects surrounding Rebecca's birth, meaning whatever horrible fate is tied to Rebecca also affects Maria. Before Ray even reaches the mountain, the two giant monsters arrive there first, and suddenly, the fake Evan transforms into a white-haired girl named Lise. Turns out the real Evan was getting catfished by his own accomplice the entire time. The real Evan immediately traps Lise using magic and threatens to unalive her for impersonating him all this time. Then he starts screaming like a complete lunatic about using Rebecca to reach Akasha. He suddenly throws flames toward Rebecca, but Lise instantly cancels the attack and teleports in front of her before moving Rebecca somewhere safer. At the same time, Lise shoves Evan through a portal and sends him somewhere else entirely, like she just muted him from the conversation. She then asks Maria if she's ready before saying that Ray is finally coming to finish things. The second Ray arrives, he recognizes the glutton monster, the guy famous for eating sorcerers' engrams like magical fast food. The creature immediately rushes toward Ray, but Lise blocks him with a giant glass-like seal. Lise introduces herself as the sorcerer of fabrication and explains that Lydia already knows about her involvement. She then reveals the actual plan. Apparently, Rebecca is going to overheat because of her powers, and Ray is the only one capable of sealing it properly using something called a Chromos lock because his magic resonates with hers. Lise explains that Rebecca's father agreed to let her use any methods necessary to protect Rebecca, but Ray obviously does not trust her at all because she sounds like somebody who definitely experiments on people during weekends. Lise admits that she's got her own personal goals too, but before she can explain further, the glutton breaks free from the seal again. Ray summons an ice sword and attacks him, but the monster is ridiculously strong and instantly shatters the blade apart. Meanwhile, Lise enters the portal to deal with Evan personally, and Evan immediately starts threatening her again despite already losing horribly earlier. Lise explains that he literally can't reach her because of the barrier between them, but Evan ignores her warning and activates something called the Dark Triad system by injecting weird stuff directly into his brain that already doesn't work. The injection amplifies his darkness and transforms him into a giant monster. He charges toward Lise, still somehow not understanding the barrier situation even after multiple explanations. Lise then summons an apotheosis, causing causing Evan's engram to overload and self-destruct. His monster form gets completely consumed in flames and crashes to the ground. Even Evan himself gets shocked by how insanely powerful Lise is and calls her the strongest sorcerer alive. But Lise rejects the title and says the Ice Blade sorcerer is actually the strongest, even claiming that Ray is powerful enough to rule the world if he wanted to. Meanwhile, Ray and the others finally finish off the remaining monsters and start relaxing, believing the nightmare is finally over. The group talks about how much stronger they all became thanks to Ray's training and leadership. But before they can celebrate properly, a dark presence suddenly appears along with several dark mages who immediately attack them. Luckily, the adult sorcerers arrive just in time and tell the students to sit back and watch the real pros handle business. Turns out, the teachers and elite sorcerers already wiped out most of the enemy forces earlier and only came now to clean up the leftovers. First up is Carla, who jumps in with her twin sickle blades and starts slicing through enemies at ridiculous speed using lightning-fast attacks. Then Abby joins in too, with her swords transforming into giant chain weapons that launch flaming arrows everywhere. Caroline lures a bunch of monsters straight into a massive explosion trap, wiping them out like it's fun and games. But the final cleanup comes from Lydia, who goes full serious mode and summons countless icicle blades before merging them into one giant spear. She drops it straight down and crushes the remaining enemies into the ground like they were nothing. But Ray is still stuck fighting the glutton until the glutton finally stops playing around and transforms into a massive ultimate form. One punch sends Ray flying, and he crashes hard onto the ground. Maria blames Rebecca for everything happening, saying that she caused all this by refusing to speak up when she had the chance. Rebecca doesn't take that quietly, and the two sisters start arguing, both saying things that hit too deep. But they end it all, and both of them admit that they still love each other. Right in the middle of it, both of their bodies start glowing strangely. The glutton suddenly grabs Ray by the neck and lifts him up, thinking the fight is basically over. But Ray summons another sword, and the glutton assumes it will break like the others. Instead, Ray throws the sword straight into its foot and freezes it instantly. The glutton gets shocked as Ray follows up by stabbing it with more ice blades, slowly freezing its entire body piece by piece. Before it fully freezes, the glutton finally admits that Ray is insanely strong, then gets completely sealed in ice. Ray's still barely holding on and bleeding from his eyes, but he forces himself to activate Chrono's lock on the frozen monster. After that, he finally collapses unconscious. Rebecca rushes to help him, but Maria stops her and tells her to stay away, still blaming her for everything. That triggers another heated argument between the sisters, but this time the tension breaks in a weird way cause both sisters suddenly admit they love each other again, and at the same moment, both of them begin glowing as Rebecca's unstable power reacts. Lise returns with Evan's body and reveals that Rebecca is starting to overheat from her own power surge, so she creates a magical containment field around Rebecca and tells Ray to activate Chrono's lock on her, too. Rebecca feels guilty for everything she said to Maria, but Ray calms her down and tells her that everyone makes mistakes like that. He then kisses her, activating Chrono's lock and stabilizing her condition. Rebecca's father gets the report that both daughters are safe thanks to the Ice Blade sorcerer. He immediately sends Lex to formally thank Ray for saving the family. Later that evening, Amelia and Rebecca end up arguing about who has the better chance of winning Ray's attention. Rebecca claims that she's basically tied to Ray for life now, while Amelia argues that she's more mature and can handle all the attention he gets from other girls. The argument slowly turns into a weird competitive agreement about best woman wins, like Ray's some kind of final tournament prize. Before it goes further, Clarice and Elisa get annoyed that the two of them are openly competing as nobody else exists. Eventually, all four girls end up together watching fireworks with Ray. The next day, Ray visits Howard's grave alone. He admits that he never felt he deserved a normal school life after everything he did during the war and all the lives he took. He says the only reason he's still standing is because of Lydia, who helped him deal with his past and stop drowning in it. Ray then says that now he has people who accept him as he is, even with everything he's done, people he can finally call friends without pretending. After that, he meets up with Ariane, who invites him to join the Magic's war with her. That's it for this video, folks. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to leave a like. Drop a comment about your favorite character in the game, and turn on post notifications so you will be the first to go into our next video.